It was a quiet afternoon in Fairfield County, Connecticut. The sun cast golden shadows across the manicured garden of a grand mansion owned by a man named William Ashford. But he wasn't focused on the flowers or the estate's symmetry. He stood frozen at the terrace edge, watching something far more unexpected. Down below, a man in stained work boots and a faded shirt knelt beside a little girl, gently feeding her a spoonful of soup. Her name was Ava. She was 8 years old. And blind. The man, whose hands bore the evidence of years in manual labor, smiled as he guided the spoon to her lips. "Just one more bite, sweet pea," he said softly. Ava giggled, a light, sincere laugh that William hadn't heard in what felt like a lifetime. It pierced him. That laugh used to be his world. But since the accident, since that rainy night when a moment's distraction had flipped their lives upside down, he could barely look his daughter in the eye. The guilt was corrosive, the shame inescapable. He had been the one driving. He had been the one who walked away unharmed while Ava lost her sight forever. Now here stood Elijah Cole, a simple brick mason hired to work on the garden pathways, managing to reach Ava in ways William never could. In just 2 weeks, this man had cracked open her world with nothing but patience and warmth, and William, a billionaire who built skyscrapers and reshaped skylines, couldn't even build a bridge to his daughter's heart. Ava reached out and touched Elijah's face, her fingers brushing against his cheek with surprising precision. "Tell me again about the color of the roses," she whispered. Elijah smiled. "Red, like the warmth of the sun after a storm." From the shadows of the terrace, William's chest tightened. For the first time in years, he realized he wasn't just watching someone feed his daughter, he was watching someone see her, and what came next would unravel everything he thought he understood about love, pain, and the true cost of silence. William barely heard his housekeeper's voice when she called out from behind. "Mr. Ashford, your call with Tokyo is ready. It's about the high-rise contract." He nodded absently but didn't move. His eyes remained locked on the garden as Elijah gently helped Ava to her feet. She clung to his hand, smiling, animated, alive in a way William hadn't seen since before. Back in his office, he passed by the framed photo of his late wife, Celeste. Her smile in the picture was still so full of life, so radiant, that it felt like a cruel reminder. Celeste had been the glue. The one who could calm Ava with a hum or get William to leave his work for dinner. She had died 3 years before the accident. And since then, William had been slowly vanishing into the walls of his empire, while Ava was handed over to therapists, nurses, and strangers with warm voices and cold detachment. Later that day, Ava's piano teacher called. "She didn't show up again," the woman said. William frowned. "Why not? Didn't the nurse take her?" She refused, said she hates the piano now that she can't see the keys. That crushed him. Music had been Celeste's legacy. Ava used to love it. That night, unable to sleep, William wandered into the kitchen. Voices drifted from the garden again. He paused near the glass door, hidden in the shadows. Ava sat beside Elijah by the stone fountain. "My dad doesn't love me anymore," she said softly. "Not since I went blind." William's breath caught. Elijah's reply was gentle, but steady. "Don't say that. Sometimes grown-ups are just scared, especially when someone they love is hurting." "Have you lost someone you loved?" There was a pause. Then Elijah's voice, lower now, replied, "Yes. My daughter, Lila. She was almost your age." William's hand trembled on the doorframe. The pain in Elijah's voice was unmistakable, and for the first time in years, William felt something real, a crack in the stone wall he'd built around his grief. But he didn't yet know how deep that crack would run. or what truths were buried behind Elijah's sorrowful eyes. The next morning, William made a call. One of many, really. It was easy for a man like him, wealthy, connected, respected, to get what he wanted quickly and discreetly. "I need a full background check," he told the private investigator. "His name is Elijah Cole. I want to know who he is, where he's from, everything. Especially about the daughter he mentioned." 3 days later, a thick envelope landed on William's mahogany desk. He tore it open, hands trembling. The report was unexpected. Elijah Cole, age 43, civil engineering degree with honors, former project manager for a prestigious construction firm in New Jersey. Married. Wife, Miriam, passed away from breast cancer 6 years ago. One child, Lila Cole, deceased, leukemia. Died at age 7. After losing both wife and child, Elijah had walked away from his career. From life, really. A close friend had told the investigator he said he needed to do something with his hands, something that made him feel grounded. So he became a gardener, then a builder, then a mason, a man with a brilliant mind who had chosen to live humbly, to bury pain beneath calluses and concrete. William leaned back in his chair, stunned. He had assumed Elijah was just another laborer, a simple man, but Elijah was anything but simple. How does someone survive that kind of loss and still smile, still care, still have enough heart left to comfort someone else's child? That night, William stood by Ava's door. For the first time in 2 years, he entered. She was asleep, her little chest rising and falling, a soft lock of hair across her forehead. William knelt beside her bed and, without knowing why, touched her hair. The contact was brief, but it shattered something inside him. He was beginning to understand. The man in the garden had built more than stone paths. He had laid the first brick of something William hadn't felt in years. Hope. The next morning, William canceled his meetings, an almost unthinkable move for a man like him. He set up a picnic in the garden, laid out the blanket, poured juice, waited. When Ava came down for breakfast, her face registered confusion. "Dad, what are you doing?" "I thought, maybe we could spend the day outside together?" She hesitated. "Aren't you too busy?" That question nearly broke him, but he smiled. "Not today." They sat near the fountain. The air was quiet, save for the rustling leaves. Elijah appeared, toolbox in hand, and began walking toward another corner of the yard. But Ava perked up immediately. "Elijah, my dad is here. Come sit with us." The two men locked eyes. It wasn't a stare of anger or resentment, but something deeper, complex. Elijah walked over and nodded respectfully. For a few minutes, they talked about garden layouts and sensory spaces, about Ava's new fascination with identifying flowers by scent and touch. Then William asked softly, "How do you do it?" Elijah paused. "Do what?" "Show up. After everything. After Lila. How are you not broken?" Elijah set down a spade and looked into the distance. "When my daughter was sick, she asked me to promise something. She said, 'Daddy, promise you'll keep seeing the colors.' I didn't understand it back then." He turned to William. "But I do now. Your daughter is alive, Mr. Ashford. She's here, waiting. She needs you to see her colors, not just her darkness." And in that moment, William realized he had been blind too, but not in the way Ava was. Not at all. 2 days later, while reviewing blueprints in his office, William received an anonymous envelope. No return address, just his name in careful black ink. He slid it open with a letter opener and pulled out a medical file. Clipped to the front was a small sticky note. 5 words, scrawled in capital letters. "You need to know this." Inside were detailed records from various hospitals. But one name kept appearing: Dr. Calvin Mercer, the neurologist who had diagnosed Ava's condition as irreversible. William's fingers gripped the pages tighter. Mercer had been quietly shuffled from one medical institution to another, leaving behind trails of patient complaints, malpractice accusations, and settlements sealed by confidentiality agreements. What began as a trickle of suspicious notes in her file turned into a damning waterfall of patterns, missteps, and cover-ups. And then he saw it, a familiar name, Lila Cole, diagnosed by the same doctor, same treatment plan, same outcome. William's breath caught in his throat. A chill ran down his spine. Could this be why Elijah was here? Had he known all along? Was it really coincidence that brought him to this mansion? Or was it something else? That evening, William couldn't concentrate. The garden, once a place of quiet solace, now seemed like a stage. Every smile, every act of kindness, every word Elijah had spoken felt layered with another meaning. He watched Ava from the window. She was laughing again. Truly laughing. Her fingers brushed along the petals of a lily as Elijah described its color. But now William wondered, what if Elijah wasn't just helping? What if he was hunting? The truth was beginning to bloom like the roses in his garden, slow, thorny, and impossible to ignore. And the deeper he looked, the more the lines between redemption and revenge began to blur. That night, long after Ava had gone to bed, William entered his private study. Elijah was already there, sitting by the fireplace, holding a folder. "I figured you'd want answers," Elijah said without preamble, sliding the folder across the table. William picked it up slowly. Inside were copies of the same files, the same medical trails, the same inconsistencies, but this time organized, annotated, with timelines and cross-referenced names. "I was the one who sent the envelope," Elijah said. "I needed to know if you'd be sharp enough to put the pieces together, to see what's really happening." William didn't sit. He stayed standing, jaw clenched. "Why are you here, Elijah? Why my house? Why my daughter?" Elijah's eyes were tired. "Because Dr. Mercer didn't just ruin Ava's life. He killed my daughter. Lila didn't have leukemia. She had a treatable condition. But he misdiagnosed her, on purpose, so he could run an experimental protocol." William stared, stunned. "He's not just incompetent," Elijah continued. "He's a predator hiding behind a white coat." The words hit like thunder. "And Ava?" William's voice cracked. "She's not permanently blind," Elijah replied. "I had her scans reviewed by Dr. Helen Vargas, one of the top ocular neurologists on the East Coast. There's a treatment. If we act now—" William's legs gave out, and he sank into the chair across from Elijah. "My daughter, all this time—" "She could see again?" Elijah nodded. "But Mercer can't know we're moving. He's protected by powerful people, politicians, donors, hospital boards. If we want justice, we'll need to be smart." William pressed his hands to his face. "So what do? We expose him. Together." And just like that, two fathers, one powerful and wealthy, the other quiet and grieving, found themselves bound by something deeper than blood. They were going to war. The plan came together, faster than either of them expected. By sunrise, William had mobilized a legal team, tapped into old connections in the press, and contacted private investigators specializing in medical corruption. Elijah, with his meticulous documentation, provided every scrap of evidence, testimonies from other families, photocopies of misdiagnoses, even old email threads from Mercer's former hospital colleagues. But the first priority was Ava. Under the guise of a weekend getaway, William took her to a discreet clinic operated by Dr. Vargas. The examination lasted hours. When it ended, Dr. Vargas entered the waiting room with tears in her eyes. Her optic nerves weren't severed, she explained. They were compressed. With the right treatment, her sight can return. It won't be instant, but it's absolutely possible. William couldn't speak. He only nodded, gripping Ava's hand tighter. Outside the clinic, Elijah was waiting. "She can see again?" William whispered. Elijah's smile was quiet, almost reverent. "Then we begin," he said. Within days, the legal team began preparing filings. A press leak exposed Dr. Mercer's pattern of abuse. More families came forward. Whistleblowers, nurses, technicians. The story broke nationally. Neurologist under fire for fraudulent diagnoses and unethical trials. Dr. Mercer was arrested at his lakeside villa, caught entirely off guard. The footage of him being led out in handcuffs went viral. But for William and Elijah, the work was just beginning. They didn't just want vengeance. They wanted to build something that would last. 3 months later, the Zoe Foundation opened its doors. Funded by William's fortune and built on Elijah's vision, it was more than a treatment center. It was a sanctuary, a promise, a second chance for children and families misled by Mercer's darkness. Ava, now undergoing vision restoration, therapy, became the face of the movement. Her story inspired thousands. Parents seeking second opinions, doctors revisiting old files, patients demanding transparency. Inside the garden at the foundation, a replica of William's estate, built brick by Elijah himself, children laughed, ran, played, and touched flowers just like Ava had once done in silence. On a quiet afternoon, William stood beside Elijah beneath a blooming tree. "She sees shapes now," William whispered. "Colors, too. Yesterday she told me the sky looked like a blue song." Elijah smiled. "That's exactly what Lila used to say." They stood there for a moment, two men weathered by grief, but transformed by purpose. "Do you think we've done enough?" William asked. Elijah looked at the children running through the grass. "We gave them back their eyes. And maybe their futures." And on the stone wall of the foundation, just beneath a carved engraving of a girl's smiling face, were words that would echo for generations to come, in memory of Lila Cole, who taught us to see. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances, because sometimes the most powerful changes come from the most unexpected hands.